I mean, I'm taking actually more of an editor role on the third book because I've hired a writer to do an extra story and an artist to draw it, and that's been really interesting. Is acting as the editor.
More time to play with the dog.
Yeah, basically. I mean, yeah. But yeah, it's like it's like kind of funny. Like I want to be a good editor, like knowing how editors can be. So I'm trying to be like the cool editor, you know? Be like, hey, can you make his eyes glowing red in this panel? Awesome. You know, like I don't know. It's awkward because the thing is like I'm working with a guy who like I'm working. The same guy who's drawing the extra story is also coloring my comic now, Anthony Clark of Nedroid. And he's one of... He's not here. He can't hear you. You're listening to me. I'm a big fan of his. Like, I own, like, several of his, like, original illustrations. They're on my wall. And so for me to be like, hey, Anthony, you didn't really do very much. Don't write it like that. Anthony, your textures look great. Why don't you try them out here? You know, and that's kind of awkward. But he's extraordinarily professional, and we got over that really quick.
So Chris makes it sound very matter of fact. You just take the comics that you've done anyway, send the files off, boom, it's a book, and you stop doing that job. So
I mean, it is pretty matter of fact. I mean, that's what you do. You make a book. But
it just costs more, like yeah. Other than doing print on demand.
There's a few downsides to it. One is when you want to do a book and you want to make it cost effective, you want to bring the per unit cost down low enough, you need to do a big run, which means that you've got to have a place to store all those books for potentially months and years. So that gets to be a bit of a pain. And you've also got to come up with all that cash up front, which you can offset a lot of that through pre-orders and things like that. But in the end, it's still, you still got to write that check, and it's extremely painful. So I wanted to do more. I wanted to do books that were, first of all, were full color, so that costs a lot more money. And I wanted to get wider distribution, which is very difficult to get if you're not dealing with a major publisher. And I wanted someone else to put up the money for the printing, and I wanted them to pay me. So those things are all accessible if you can get a book contract. And it was basically just a matter of talking to the right people and then waiting a very long time until it happened. So that was not a lot of work.
Question for the audience then. How many of you are here as fans of one of the creators or just fans of webcomics in general?
Or fans of bears.
Or bears.
Everyone's a fan of bears.
Never mind, I got the last one. I skewed that, I apologize.
And how many of you are here as creators or aspiring creators of webcomics? And
everyone.
Good luck, chumps.
Those of you that are aspiring or are current creators of webcomics, how many of you are looking eventually to get into print? Keep them up. Okay.
Not that many.
Not that many. Okay.
Guys, book sales pay my rent.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do when you run out of trees? What then?
There are tree farms. They don't just go into the Amazon for every piece of toilet paper.
Yeah, I think print on bear technology will be the next print on demand. Just slap on the bear and then send it to you. You get a really angry comic at your front door. I'd like to open it up to the audience at this point to questions. So if you got a question, hands up, and we'll call on you.
No questions.
Wow.
This
Okay.
is a very introductory answer.
Gentlemen in the white.
All right. Well, one thing I'm trying to create a sort of more of a graphic novel than a like a strip thing, and one of the issues I'm facing is trying to find trying to find the right way to kind of do it, because like I feel like one page a week isn't really enough for.
So do 3 pages a week.
Story. Well, like,
The question is, he's working more on a graphic novel than a comic strip, and trying to find the right way to do it. 1 page a week may not be enough.
Well, I guess the biggest question is, how to get a market? And once I do market my book and have an audience, is it like, how do I make a living off of that?
That's a big question.
Yeah, before we toss it to the panel, because I don't read a webcomic. I just read these things. I don't create any kind of comic or graphic novel. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Don't suck.
step number
If you
one.
do suck, please stop sucking as quickly as possible.
But sucking is not necessarily a barrier to success. I've seen a lot of folks out there who've done very well for themselves.
But I don't make any money off my comic. I have a job that I go to every day.
Lame.
I'm just
I
saying,
apologize for that.
you're right. I can't
I'm
argue
just
with
trying
the
to get
truth.
chuckles here.
But I mean, if you're in it to like get rich, stop now because it's not going to happen. I mean,
You got to want to do it first, and then
Yeah,
the money
I'm
comes
gonna
from the
do
love
the-
that you pour into it,
I'm
basically.
going to do this anyway. So if one day someone wants to pay me for it, then that's great. But you have to just want to do it first. And,
Yeah.
and you're going to get your first thing that you do probably isn't going to be your best thing. So just keep doing it.
I wouldn't worry about the money part. It sounds like you're stuck on the creative part. I would start drawing as much as I could and start posting it to the web and start building your audience and worry about the money later.
You're not going to get a graphic novel done doing 52 pages a year.
Yeah, that'll take like 3 years
Yeah.
to make
Yeah,
an
well, I
novel.
know, I did 60 pages, like in 2 years.
And you probably draw a lot better than like the first page that you did now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I stopped because I improved so much that I was so unsatisfied with where the story was going that I just wanted to do something else.
Have you done smaller projects?
Yeah, I've done a few like 8-page stories
Yeah.
that I actually usually like a lot better.
Yeah, I did like, I mean, I went to art school and during that time I did so many 3-page comics, 10-page comics, 15-page comics. That was all I did. Most of them didn't have words because we just had to learn proper visual storytelling. And you don't care. You just want to poop. So yeah, you got to do a lot of small stuff to work your way up to the longer things.
Next question. Brent.
I have 2 questions. Number one, why does Commissioner Gordon have a cone on his head? I think everyone's wondering.
Oh, right, sure.
It's cute.
Because it's cute? No, he has an ear infection. And he can't scratch his ears because the blood vessels are bursting. He'll get a hematoma.
Secondly, I was hoping for those of you that have made the transition to print. I'd imagine that online, it's a much more flexible. You said something about squeezing into 3 panels. I was wondering whether you found like going to print like stunted. Is this more limiting, or did it, affect your ideas and the quality?
Well, none of my stuff was actually ever printed. Well, I was in one paper for about 6 months, and then I quit the whole thing. But it's just the format more than anything. I mean, papers printed comics smaller and smaller and smaller, and so you can't do any sort of detail beyond like the Dilbert simple lines. And I'm not much more complicated than that, but I can't go that simple.
John, you've often gone from single row panels to double to triple, just wherever the muse takes you on a given day. Now you've got to fit that into a book. So what have you found to be your experience there?
It's not been bad. Because I've kept it for the most part to units of rows. As long as you have a set number of rows per page, I can split a strip over the course of 2 pages because it's not like the books I'm doing are not a collection of strips. They're designed to be read like a graphic novel that's continuous, and hopefully I wrote them that way. And we'll find out. So what I'll do is the books are 8 by 8, which is kind of like a standard panel from me is like a square, and then so it's like 9 in a grid, and then I break that grid a lot, but usually I just break it horizontally. So each strip that I do now is generally 2 rows. I'll do 1 2-row strip, and then the first row from the next one, and then the second row starts on the next page, and then it goes on from there. There were a couple of places where things didn't break cleanly, and I like drew an extra panel's worth of scenery and put it in there. Or I put a transition, like in the first book, they often it's more disjointed, the stories. So occasionally, like the storyline will kind of have an ending point, and then they'll go back to the bar that they hang out, and there'll be like an exterior shot of the bar, kind of like the diner at Seinfeld, when they switch back to that scene. So things like that, little tricks like that, helped a lot. And my wife is a graphic designer and did all the layouts, so she did a brilliant job with all of it. I didn't have to do hardly anything. It was nice.